Hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to everybody. I'm just going to wait just a few moments while people hop on. Just real quick, I want to thank everybody who has been showing support. I want to thank those of you who have signed up for my channel membership. Just so you know, I now have channel membership. So if you want to, get some more behind the scenes kind of content, videos, different things like that, if you'd like to connect more, you can check on my channel membership page. I also have consulting and just different services available that you just can't get, if you're just a free member. So, yeah, if you want to learn more, if you'd like to have additional perks, if you'd like to have more access, check out my channel membership page. Also, I want to thank everybody who has shown support either through Cash App, Venmo, or PayPal. You can find me there. Shay Sade, Cash App, Venmo. As you're getting on, please get the likes up. Tag anybody on this particular video who you think may find it interesting. We're actually going to talk a little bit about a video that I saw. This is going to be more of a reaction video. I'm a little behind on it. I wanted to do it a few weeks back, but just life happened. But here we are. So this is a video from the Roommates. They're a pretty popular podcast. I've watched a few of their videos, and I think they have, some pretty interesting, compelling things to say. They did an interview recently with Jordan Peterson, who is, I think, just well respected in many different areas, especially within the manosphere. I've seen a few of his lectures. So yeah, they sat down and did an interview with him not too long ago. And he was talking about many different things, one of them being relationships, modern men in relationships in particular. So yeah, I just want to do a reaction video and just kind of go over some of his different points and how I agree with it or disagree with it or what I think. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. If you have any comments or if you have any questions, feedback, as always, you can drop anything in the comment section and I'm going to play it real briefly as I bring it up. Let's see. Okay, let that ad run.
Hey guys, welcome to Forward. We're a new type of doctor's
office. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I had that queued up, but anyways. Okay, let me share it so you guys can actually see what we're talking about, and then we can go through it. So. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, as you guys know, and I'm sure well aware, I mean, relationships, it is a constant topic of conversation online, just really everywhere, because that's just a key component of life. Now, there has been a growing conversation related to just relationships today, just because, between there being a high divorce rate and there being so many different single family households, evidently there was a report recently released where, I think it was a professor. I'd have to go back and see. And they actually mention it in this video. But he basically talks about, he calls it a mating crisis and how more men across the board are choosing to be single, choosing to not marry, choosing to not lay down and have kids. Birth rates and just in certain areas and countries in general are going down. I mean, this isn't just impacting the US. Some of this stuff is impacting just the West in general. And so there's this ongoing conversation of what is going on? Why is this happening? Is this good? Is this not good? Who was to blame? Who's the culprit? And so, I think in response to that, this is, one of the reasons they have the conversation. So without further ado, also, if you just hopped on, thank you. Please get the likes up, tag anybody on who you think may find this interesting. As always, if you want to show support, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Jordan. And let's get started with this video.
Why can't men find women to date? That's not your problem. Your problem is why you can't find the woman you want. Yeah. And you have to assume that's your problem, because otherwise you have to assume that it's the women's problem. And really, they're all wrong and you're right. Really? Lucky you. Maybe you are. You're an undiscovered gem of some sort. Probably not.
Interesting. Let me know what y'all think. Also, leave your comments, feedback in the comment section.
Did you see the recent article? I think a professor at NYU named Scott Galloway, I believe his name was, and he talked about how that there is a mating crisis going on in the Western world. And one of the reasons why he brought it up was that, you know, in a typical college and university, 60% of them is female, 40% of it is male. And a lot of the college-age females or college graduates who are females, they only want partners who are also college graduates. So have you seen that article? And then what are your thoughts about a mating crisis?
Well, what seems to be happening is that if male enrollment falls below a certain percentage, and it looks like it's something like 40%, then the females start not going too.
So before we get a little bit further in, you know, there's a couple of things, because, you know, I've heard this across the board, that just, I think women in general are more educated or getting higher education. And this may vary across ethnicities. I haven't completely, I guess, verified this. I have to go back and do a little bit more research. But I think it's commonly understood that, you know, there's more women getting in colleges. Going to colleges. I've heard this narrative, especially in the Black community, that like Black women are getting more educations, having higher degrees. Again, this is one thing that I just haven't verified. I've read some reports that say, okay, more Black women are starting colleges, but they're not necessarily finishing it. I've heard other reports saying, okay, more Black women are getting, you know, maybe like associate degrees. So that's one of these things I haven't verified, but case in point, you know, there's this idea that like, hey, women are getting more education, more college than men. With that said, that doesn't necessarily always equate to more money. We know this because across the board, all ethnicities, all races, men do make more money than women. And of course, there's different arguments as to why. Some people say it's just a gender wage gap. Some people say it's because of the jobs, men taking more dangerous jobs, even some blue collar jobs or jobs that don't require a college education, they get paid more. Whereas women may be taking jobs that require less risk, maternity leave. So there's all these little different things. But at the end of the day, even if women are going to college more, and they are getting more educations, men across the board are still bringing in more money than women. That's across all ethnicities. I mentioned this in another video that I did where I kind of looked at the U.S. Census Bureau of Labor and just a few other reports that just basically outline like, okay, across ethnicities, who is bringing in more money compared to the genders. And it was across the board. Like I said, Asians, African Americans, white people, Latinos, like across the board, men were still making more money compared to the women. So just something to think about. Hey there, thanks for hopping on. We're reviewing this video from the roommates that I saw, where it's talking about men are the problem. So if you guys have any thoughts, leave them in the comment section below. Also, if you want to show support to this channel, you can find me on Cash App, Venmo, or PayPal, actually. Shay Sade. We'll continue.
And that's not surprising. I mean, really? Of course. How many people meet their prospective mates in university or college? Like, well, pretty much everyone who goes that route. So it's not surprising that that would happen with young people. And the fact that male enrollment is declining is, well, it's a shocking indictment of the education system in general. And the failure of boys all the way through the education system is the same thing, the increasing failure of boys. So, you know, I thought that part of it might be that girls will play boys' games, but boys won't play girls' games. So
before I go into that, that's interesting. They're saying male enrollment is tanking in general. That's something I'll have to look into. Because like I said, I know it's commonly been assumed that women are just, you know, getting more educations than men. And there's reasons for this, you know, scholarships, things of that nature. But I'm not sure how much the men enrollment is going down. But I wonder, like, what would be the reasons? Is it because of maybe not as much opportunities for scholarships? I know there's a lot of scholarships. Like, for example, my husband was telling me in engineering, for example, or, you know, certain scholarships that tend to be more male dominated, there's plenty of scholarships for women who want to get in those spaces because they're trying to get more women in. Something is it scholarships? Is that the reason? Is it because some of these colleges men feel like are more feminist leaning? I know a few college students who were attending the University of California, Berkeley, and we've had honest conversations about how they'll be studying classes that are supposed to be for men or studying classes that are supposed to be male centric. And there's a very feminist leaning, like perspective. And some of these men, I'm talking to them candidly and they're like, as a heterosexual straight man, I actually kind of feel left out. Like, or I feel like I can't really be myself because I'm being told this story, but I'm not being told that story. So I'm just curious as to why. Why is it that, men are not going to colleges as much? Is it, is it for financial reasons? It's because men feel like they don't necessarily need college. Is it because they feel like, man, this is being overrun by feminism? Is it all the above? Is it neither? Curious. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts. Leave your questions or comments in the comment section and we will continue.
There's a bit of that going on with boys themselves, I think. But
What
more
do you mean by that, Dr. Peterson?
Well, if a girl plays boys games, she's admired by the girls and the boys. But if a boy plays girl games, well, he's not necessarily admired by the girls or the boys, right?
That's true.
Now, I don't mean I don't mean that boys shouldn't play with girls or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
That isn't what I mean. I'm trying to figure out this enrollment issue and what's going on, and obviously girls, for whatever reason, are being encouraged to value their education in a way that boys aren't, and that's partly marketing and messaging as well, because girls are taught fairly consistently now that they should be their best self and the world needs more female power and so on and so forth. And that's probably true.
So, it's interesting to me that he makes this distinction about, if girls, girls play boy games. I'm not sure exactly what he is saying, but I'm assuming he's referring to maybe expectations that are put on men versus women. Assuming that's the case, if he's saying that, okay, a woman can go to college and do, secure her bag, be a boss babe, make all this money, and she'll be celebrated by women and men. I guess I would ask, in what capacity? Now, if we're talking about maybe strictly in a workforce, then yes, I do agree. If a woman goes and gets college degree, she gets a bachelor's or master's, and she basically gets enough accreditation to qualify her for certain jobs. Yeah, she may get the opportunity to that job. She may be celebrated within that particular workforce. But as far as relationships are concerned, I don't think a woman going to college, getting an education or doing some of these modern boss babe things, men aren't looking at that and being like, oh, yay, yay. If he's saying like, oh, women going to college is playing boys games, men are not looking at those women who are playing those boy games and clapping, hand clapping and celebrating them in the context of relationships, because there are plenty of men right now who are saying, because these women have become so modern and because we are now competing literally in the workforce, now it's hard for them to get in a relationship with me and want to work with me, want to submit, want to, honor me as a man. Like they feel like, they need to compete with me, even in their relationship. So I'd be curious for him to expound on what does he mean when he says girls versus boy games, and what is the context? Like I said, if the context is just work, if we just get your education, it's like, okay, cool. But if the context is within a relationship, then it's like, nah, I don't think men celebrate women or see them as more desirable or more attractive just because they have a degree. If they have a degree, cool. But as long as it doesn't get in the way of the core components of them being, pretty to them, feminine friendly, if you will, easy to get along with, then the degree is like whatever. I see women can conquer the world now. Well, we'll see. We will see. So we'll continue. For those of you who are on, please get the likes up. Tag anybody on who you think may find this interesting. We're looking at this reaction video on why men are the problem. This is a video that came from the roommates where they interviewed Jordan Peterson. And I'm just looking at his response to give you my honest feedback. So let me know what you think. Leave your comments. Also, if you want to show support, you can find me Cash App and Venmo, and we will continue.
But the underlying message there is, well, instead of boy power and man power, not along with, but instead of.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if women ran the world, there'd be no wars. It's like, yeah, right. Yeah.
That's a lie. That's a lie. I'll say that out the gate. The amount of women, first off, I did a video about this a few weeks ago where I showed that domestic violence, by and large, it's instigated across the board. Women instigated more. Now, there's different reasons for this, right? There's different theories as to why this is happening. And of course, when a woman instigates domestic violence versus a man, it generally doesn't create as much bodily harm. But case in point, based upon this report that I did, women were shown to initiate violence more. So maybe that would have been the case 50, 60 years ago, but certainly not today, especially not when you got videos of women who are like 4'10", coming at dudes who are 6'2". So I'm like, nah, I don't believe that. There are women who will try to fight and brawl just as any dude out there. So whoever believes that doesn't know modern women.
Right. You really think that? It's like, how dim can you possibly be to believe that?
Right.
Right.
So something else I've been hearing, Dr. Peterson, a lot of young men have been sharing with me, and I'm not sure how much you've heard of it or experienced it. They've been sharing that, that they feel as though the average woman has no desire for the average male, and that because of things like social media, online dating, things along those lines, as well as just some of the female empowerment, where a lot of women have this is what they say, an elevated sense of self, that now they feel like they're above a lot of these average men, which also contributes to a disparity between young adults being able to connect and form meaningful relationships.
Yeah, well, women are more picky in their mate choices than men, especially sexually. That's the case in every culture. And it's not surprising. That's because facts. Women have more at stake sexually than men do. Facts. Per episode, because men don't get pregnant, obviously. And so that female pickiness is that's the case. That's definitely true. Whether it's worse now or not, I doubt if it is. I would say to young men who are irritated at women is, if you're irritated at women, as a class of creature, there's something wrong with you, because they're right. You're wrong.
Okay. So before I get into that, from what I understand, he's been married for a few decades. So he obviously hasn't been in the dating scene for a long time. So while I agree out the gate with anybody who generalizes a people group, anybody who just says all women are the problem or all men are the problem, I think it's just being disingenuous and they're not looking at the full picture. I do agree with that. I don't know if I agree, if I'm understanding him correctly, I don't know if I agree that, things haven't changed as much. As a woman who talks to women, who knows women, who is a woman, I very much do believe and agree that some of the expectations that we have now for our partners is different than our parents or even great grandparents. There used to be a time where it was expected that she would marry somebody next door, and that was okay. Or you would marry somebody within your community, and that was okay. That wasn't seen as you settling. That wasn't seen as you marrying down. It wasn't seen as you settling for less. Like, that was what happened. Now there's such this push of don't settle for less. Don't give up your standards. Like, that's just a common talking point. And so I just don't think the way women are picking now is the same way that they were picking 40, 50 years ago. I don't think that at all. And I think there's reasons for this. I mean, if we look at the divorce rate, a lot of women going back and being like, I don't want to repeat what my mama did or my dad did or my grandparents did. So there's reasons for this, but I don't think, I don't know. I do think women are probably a little bit pickier for multiple reasons. Media, marketing, more exposure to certain things. Just plenty of things. So
they're right to not pick you. If they're not picking you, it's because they're right.
Wow.
Now, that might get, I know that's a terrible thing to say, and I know perfectly well. It wasn't like I was particularly successful with girls when I was young. So I know what that rejection is like. I know what that fear is like. I don't know it as well as some men know it, because I wasn't rejected outright. So But what you have to understand is that, what do you expect from women? If you got pregnant because you had sex, you'd be pretty damn choosy too. So, clue in a bit. And then, well, don't they find you attractive? Well, maybe you're not. Like, have you paid attention to how you dress? Do you have a plan? Are you as educated as you could be? Are you a liar? Are you a rabid pornography user?
So before I continue, okay, so he says, yeah, women are right, which I agree with the point to where, like, yeah, as a woman, you do have more at like risk as far as, I mean, so many different things. Obviously, giving birth to children. Now, I mean, there's, birth control and abortion and different things that women can do essentially to remove that barrier, if you will. But still, if you don't believe in abortion and you don't want to get pregnant, like, that is something to think about. And then also it's like, women are judged differently. A woman who's, 40 or 50 picking is different than a woman who's in her 20s, and there's a shorter timeline and there's kind of more at stake as a result. Men can, in essence, I'm not saying this is easy, but in essence, a man who's 40s and 50, who's a bachelor, who's single, who's balling, he could get somebody half his age and it's not a big deal. If you're a woman and you're successful, that's a little bit harder for you to do. And so you have to be a little bit more serious sooner because there is a smaller window. So I think there are different reasons, to his point, that do make it to where women are going to be a little bit more picky. And he says, he's like, men are the problem. Do you not have a good job? Do you not have good people skills? Do you look bad? Like, and that certainly does exist. Like I said, there are dudes out there who just don't have social skills, who don't even know how to talk to a female, who don't have just good hygiene, have good personal care whatsoever. So you can't expect women to be attracted to them. But I don't know. It's just interesting that it sounds like he's saying at this point, look, man, if you're having issues with women, then you need to look at yourself, which I agree. I would say for women and men. I would say for women who generalize and say men are the issue, now you need to start with yourself first, because, like attracts like. Water seeks its own level. So if you're picking a particular kind of guy over and over again, what does that say about you? And I would say the same thing for men. So I think what he's saying, for the most part, I think I agree with. But to me, he does sound like somebody who's coming from a previous generation who hasn't been in today's dating scene, which I personally think is a little bit more volatile and a little bit more complicated than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago when he was dating. But I don't know, those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section.
Because maybe that's undermining your motivation to seek out a woman and grow yourself up. It's like, if you're rejected constantly and you're out there really trying, because that's another thing to ask yourself is, well, how many women have you actually asked out? And are you so sure that you're not picking women who will certainly reject you because you're trying to bat out of your league? Because you might be.
True.
So, and I'm speaking about this as a clinician too, because I had plenty of men in my practice who were, radically unsuccessful with women. I had one man in particular. He was so afraid of women, he couldn't use the phone. He was too afraid of everyone to use the phone. And he had been bullied like mad. And he had his problems. So I know what this is like, but pornography is a big problem. It's a big problem. It's a real curse, that pornography, in my opinion, because it's an easy out. And so we don't know what the consequences of that are. Starting to understand some of them. But if you were better, you'd be more successful with women.
Okay, so y'all let me know what you think. That he's saying, men, if you were better with women, then you would be more successful with women. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is he right or is he wrong? I see. That's why older people sound antiquated when speaking about dating in the 21st century. Right. Similar to why, certain generations, I feel like, sound antiquated when they talk about this current economy. Not to say they don't have certain wisdom and things to offer, but I'm like, it's different. The economy is different now than it was 30, 40 years ago, as is the dating scene, as is just socially. So many things have changed, even in the last 10 years. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think what he's saying is wrong to a certain extent, but to me, it sounds like a person who has not dated and who has not been out in these streets having to talk to modern women. And like I said, I say this as a woman who believes that there are men out there who legitimately don't have social skills, who legitimately need to focus on themselves. They don't need to be worrying about a female. And there are also legitimately females out there who just have such unrealistic expectations. If this was not the case, we would not have 3 different women who dedicated their lives to helping women retire. Look at Ayanna Van Zandt, right? Rebecca Lynn Pope, April Mason. 3 women who basically dedicated their lives to working with women and said, I'm over it. These women are too hard to deal with. 3 women. So I'm like, those, and they were in this, like they were in those streets talking to women on a consistent basis, like over and over again. And so I'm like, and they have nothing to lose, or they have nothing to gain. Those 3 women have nothing to gain by talking negatively about the potential client. So I'm like, that's why I don't think what he's saying necessarily is, there's an element of truth to what he's saying, but I don't know that he sees the fuller picture, because like I said, he ain't out in these streets dating. It's rough for women and for men, you know. It says, I'm in my mid-40s and widow. Trust me, it has nothing about being better. Wait, so you're saying it has nothing to do with you like doing better? So you're saying you don't agree with his point that men just, if women aren't into those men, it's because those men need to do better? Is that what you're saying? I'm assuming this guy hasn't listened to Kevin Samuels. I mean, granted, I know his, you know, we can't necessarily take that as a case study and say, well, all women are like this, but it's certainly damning. Like listening to some of the different conversations that happen over and over and over and over again, I certainly feel like Kevin Samuels is giving, at the very least, a snapshot into some of the thoughts of modern women and just modern female ideology, period. And like I said, some of that I think does cause a problem. It says the better or more skilled man isn't getting the woman. It's more about what she wants, and most of the time she regrets what she wants. My gosh. Yeah, I did a bit on this where women are attracted to dusties. You know, what do they call it? Hybristophilia in the 20s and 30s, teens, 20s, 30s, where these women, they like these bad boys. I mean, think about it. You look at the Megan Goods of the world. You look at Ciara. You look at even Lori Harvey. You look at what's Chloe. Even if you just want to look at celebrities and look at how you have some of these, what do you call it, 8, 9, 10 or 100 octane women who they have any pick of guys in the world, and they choose the bad boys. They choose the ones that already got a couple baby mamas. The ones that never married, sleeping around, like don't have issues with committing, like they purposely choose those bad boys. And so I'm like, even if we just want to look at the case, the case study of these celebrities and what they choose when they're really, really young versus what they settle with when they're older. Now, these women that I all mentioned, because they're celebrities and they're beautiful, Ciara, she could bounce back because she's beautiful enough and accomplished enough to where she could have her whole phase end up being a baby mama and still land a Russell Wilson. But she is a celebrity and she was a model. She was a triple threat, if you will. So like somebody like her, she can make a mistake, but because, women are really valued by their looks and she has that to the table of so many other things, she could bounce back. Same with the Megan Good, who had this whole past, but was able to land a pastor. Like, she could bounce back. So I'm just like, I say all these examples of beautiful women who, when they were young, they chose the bad boy. But when they got a little older or wised up, then they chose a good guy, and that worked for them because they look good and they're celebrities and they can do that. But most women can't do that. Most women don't have access to, multi-million-dollar men. They don't have personal trainers. They don't have different people dedicated to helping them look good. Like it's a completely different system. And so your average woman, if she does the whole phase when she's young and messes with them pookies and ray rays, when she's 30 or 40, she's not necessarily going to have a Ciara story. So it says, yeah, the more educated, upwardly mobile, the more lame they are. If you're referring to men, absolutely yes. I remember when I I've had this conversation with a few black men in particular, where a few black men who, educated, the engineers, the lawyers, the doctors, the ones who are actually really trying to, like, further themselves and put themselves in good industries. And they talk about how, when they're in college, when they're in, grinding, trying to do their thing, the woman that they're attracted to they're going after the pookies and the railways. They're going after the bad boys. They're going after the dudes who aren't in college. And sometimes, you think about black men, sometimes these black men who want black women, the woman that they want don't want them, and the women who do pay them attention they may be the Becky, they may be the Myling, as they say, they may be the woman of a different ethnicity. And so it's like, yeah, if you are the educated black man, and then you're the one that you're not the cool one, you're the lame, you're like the nerd, you're the geek in your 20s and 30s, right? Or your 20s, early 30s, you're the geek. If the women who pay you any mind, if they're a different nationality, you end up falling in love with that woman. Now you get 35, 40, you're successful. And then now, oh, well, you don't like black women. Now, oh, well, you're this and that. Oh, why don't you share your wealth for the black woman? But it's like, dang, well, when dude was out there building when he was young, he wasn't getting any love. He was only getting love from these women from different ethnicities. So I've heard that narrative, and I do believe it's true. I know it's not, it's not always the case, but I do believe, to your point, yes, good guys do get passed over, especially when they are young. This happens, especially in the black community, where we have such toxic ideas of what's masculine, and we have such toxic ideas of what's feminine. And then when it comes to where we are of age and we really need to make those good life choices, sometimes those really good men have been taken up from other women, from other, women from other races. And that can cause all kinds of complications. But I rant on. Let me continue.
So you have to have that in your mind. And you cannot be angry at women. It's stupid. Women, it's like women being angry at men. It's a sign of psychological trouble, that.
Mm.
You're not going to find any of this food on DoorDash because food like this isn't about.
So you feel as though Dr. Peterson is that, for the men who are complaining about the standards of women today and it being elevated, that it's not so much a focus of pointing the finger at them not choosing them, but more so looking in the mirror and asking themselves, what can they do to improve themselves to be so desirable, instead of focusing simply in on the inability of, what
be a little stronger, dress a little better, speak a little more clearly, aim a little higher, and practice that, and that'll work. Now, I know that that's more difficult for some people than others, because some people bear incredibly difficult developmental burdens, and I'm not saying that this is easy, but I'm saying that it's a useful reaction. Like, what else are you going to do? What else are you going to do? Complain about women? I've seen that in men. I went out with a group of men who were having trouble with their wives, and they'd gone off to this couples retreat, and it was mostly rubbish, although they were trying a bit to get their lives together. And I spent a whole day with them. There were 3 of them, and one of them was a guy that I'd known for quite a while, and every single word he said was a lie. and all these 3 did the whole day was complain about their wives. And I thought, what the hell's wrong with you guys? You picked them. They're these women you picked, and maybe they have their flaws, but they're your wives. And that's how you talk about them? And you think they're the problem? You're so dumb that you don't even know that you shouldn't badmouth your wife just because she's your wife. Like when Tammy and I got married, we had a discussion about that. It's like, she has her flaws and I have my flaws, but I'm her husband and she's my wife. And there's a certain respect that goes along with that category, if you have any sense. And so that's an extension of the same thing. It's best to look to yourself. Now and then you can, things have gone rotten in society, and you have to bear your responsibility. You have to address that at a social level and a communal level. But fundamentally, it's like, and you do so much less harm if you look to yourself first as the problem, But believe me, you're plenty of problem for you. You're all the problem you need for you. That's for sure.
Okay, so I can, like I said, I can respect totally how he's like, hey man, before you go and essentially create a whole movement on why women are the problem, just make sure that you are being introspective. Like I can respect that, because yeah, very rarely is it 100% all that person. Like especially if you're in a relationship with somebody, like let's say a marriage breaks up, very rarely is it just 100% one person, like all the woman's fault or all the men's fault. It's usually a combination of both. Now maybe one may be a little bit more guilty, but you know what I mean, there's always room to self-reflect. So I can understand what he's saying, that yeah, I mean, you should look to yourself first and just make sure that you are completely doing your part, and that you are also putting your best foot forward before you were so quick to judge women. With that said, I think it is inaccurate to assume that women, the way that they're choosing right now, and the way that we have been programmed to choose, is right and healthy. Because as a woman who speaks with women on a regular basis, who has lived this life as a woman and who knows what many of them want, I do not agree that the different things that we have been, whether it's nurtured to believe or programmed to believe, I don't believe some of those things are healthy. And I do believe sometimes there are women out there who have standards that are a little bit unrealistic. And even if you don't want to take my word, for example, take Rebecca Lynn Pope's word, for example, you can take Ayanna Van Zant's word, and now the most recent femininity coach who stepped down, April Mason. To me, those are some pretty damning reports. So, I see Jordan Peterson is purple pill. Jordan Peterson is racist. I pass on this one. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with well, I mean, I'm not as familiar with his content. I've heard about him within the manosphere space. And then I just know roommates brought him on, and I saw that this video got some good views, so I wanted to talk about it. I see Shay, I respect how you were the first to reach out and be willing to talk to my sister about her life, even though I doubt she would, cause she's an antidepressant miss. Yeah, I'm always open to have conversations, with anybody. So anyways, I will continue.
So what would you say, Dr. Peterson, to the young men who are pushing back on this idea, and the young men who say, like, traditionally speaking, there was a sort of mating where if you were a guy, you're middle class, you can get a middle class partner. You're a guy making $40,000 a year, you can get a certain level of partner. Yeah. That in some communities, in some environments, yeah, because of degrees and things like that, if you're a guy, making $50,000 a year or $60,000 a year, and you're doing relatively well, that the women in your cohort who are similar partners to you may not desire you. Instead of wanting a partner making 60, want a partner making 80. So what would you say to those guys?
Mostly I'd say that was an excuse. But I wouldn't go farther than that, because I don't know how to answer those questions in some ways at a collective level, which is why I focus on the individual. If someone came to me and told me that, the first thing I would do is listen to them for like 10 sessions, just to find out what they're thinking and to find out what the problem actually is, because they think they know what the problem is. It's these picky women, and that could be the problem. For them, it might be. Maybe there's a demographic issue or a community issue that I don't understand. So I wouldn't assume that I knew what the problem was. But those sorts of things, in my experience, have to be solved at a high level of detail, like at high resolution. So let's say you are having trouble finding a mate, and you think, well, I'm reasonably symmetrical, I'm in decent physical condition, I'm young, I have a decent salary, but still, okay, well, that's a deep dive issue. I don't know what's wrong. We have to talk about that. And I do mostly listen. It's like, you seem okay. So why don't you have a partner? Well, that's a deep mystery. Like, it's really a deep mystery. It's nothing trivial. There's no simple solution to that. And so, again, that's why I don't really do sociology in some sense, except insofar as I understand the role of the individual in relationship to society. So I would say to someone like that, practically, if you want to do something, go see a cognitive behavioral psychologist and take the problem apart and strategize. That you'll figure out how to fix it. That's good.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. To me, he just sounds like somebody who has not been in the dating market for some time. He's been married for a while, and so um like he even said, he's like, I'm not a sociologist. I don't know. I'd have to sit there and listen. So he was very candid about like some of these things I don't know. He's like, if a man was to come in and say, I have this, I have that, I have that, I'm not able to find somebody, he'd like, I'd have to first sit down and listen. So with that said, it doesn't, and again, I don't know, but it just doesn't sound like he's really, really talking to these guys on a regular basis who are in maybe their 20s and 30s or even early 40s who are really seeking life partners and they're having a hard time. So that's what I'm saying. I think to me, it just sounds like he's coming from a different generation where things were just different. Gender norms were a little bit different. The economy was different. Just politically, socially, things were different. And so he's coming from what I understand, coming from that slightly dated vantage point. Not to say some of the things he's saying isn't relevant or doesn't apply, but I don't know that he fully, from my understanding, I don't know that he fully understands how complicated it's become for men and women just based upon some of these different facts. Because I don't know that I would just say, oh, okay, men, just work on yourself, and then not implicate women also in the same, problem, and look at whether or not the things that they've been taught and the things that we as women have been conditioned to believe are also helpful. Because like I said, as a woman who talks to women, who knows women, I know there are things that we've been taught that are unhealthy. And as a woman who has, looked at femininity coaches that I mentioned again, Rebecca Lynn Pope, Alan Vincent, April Mason, women who their clientele were women and they worked them time and time and time again, and them stepping away and saying things that begruntled red pill men are saying, it's like, no, I don't know that we can just simply say, men, you're the problem. If you're having issues in relationship, it's just you. Yes, start there. And some of it can be you for sure. But sometimes it also can be the women. And sometimes it can also be the woman that, you choose. Like, I think sometimes both men and women we weren't necessarily taught. Like if you come from a broken home, you come from maybe a single family home, maybe you didn't see mom and dad, or you didn't see healthy marriages. A lot of people are just guessing, women and men included. And so sometimes I think men aren't necessarily encouraged to know the right qualities to look for, and same with women. And so I think there's probably a little bit of a learning curve on both ends, but I don't think it's right to just say, hey, yeah, man, this is your issue. This is just your problem. But like I said, he's not a sociologist, so we can't necessarily expect anything different. Okay. Okay, see what's okay, let me continue.
That's good because I think
it's a serious problem, right?
Yeah. Definitely a serious problem. And I think what ends up happening is that, like you said, too many people create a one-size-fit-all problem to what they're going on. So they say, well, the reason I'm unsuccessful is because of the A. But in reality, if you could talk to a wiser individual and sit down, you might realize that the problem isn't aka the women. Maybe the problem is that you're lacking confidence, lacking communication skill, you're picking the wrong kind of individuals, and there's a myriad of varieties of issues instead of just simply making it just a one-size-fit-all problem.
Yes, absolutely. Well, it's also in some ways a lot less depressing to particularize like that, because you find out a bunch of problems you don't have, right? So you can just those aren't my problems. Turns out my problem is this, and then that might be non-trivial, and probably is, but at least it's not everything, right? And I also think that when we talk about things like climate change, it's like, well, really, there's no such thing as the climate. It's not a useful word when you're trying to solve a problem. And what do you mean by change exactly? Like these are really low resolution concepts, and all of the solutions are high resolution. And it requires particularized expertise to solve some genuine actionable problem. You have to decompose the problem. And then you have to be satisfied with addressing some micro element of it. There's no fixing climate change. That conceptually, it's just an indication of unsophisticated thinking. That's all it is. And then there's an insistence. Well, climate change is real. Well, what do you mean by real? What do you mean by change? What do you mean by climate? How much do you know about climate? And I'm just picking on that because it's a real overgeneralization. It's not helpful. And when you talk to real
That's
experts,
powerful.
they've particularized. So I'll give you an example. Glenn Schellenberger, I hope I got that right. I just talked to him. He wrote this book recently called Apocalypse Never. And he was a climate activist, an eco-activist for a long time. But you know, he kept delving into things and particularizing them. And then he wrote this book. And one of the things he said was, he talked to an MIT scientist who said, if you want to knock carbon dioxide emissions down, the best thing to do would be to work to help India burn more coal.
That'll make no sense.
It's like,
that'll make no
who
kind
would
of sense.
guess that except a particularized expert? The reason for that is that it's better than wood. And it's a pathway on the way to natural gas and perhaps nuclear. But it's not obvious, because in the short term, it makes the problem worse, or it seems to. And so that's particularized knowledge. And you have to particularize your problem. Why can't men find women to date? That's not your problem. Your problem is why you can't find the woman you want. Yeah. And you have to assume that's your problem, because otherwise you have to assume that it's the women's problem. And really, they're all wrong and you're right. Really? Lucky you. Maybe you are. You're an undiscovered gem of some sort. Probably not.
Interesting. So yeah, basically, you know, he's just saying, yeah, you gotta deal with yourself individually. You can't necessarily generalize and say, oh, well, all men can't find women. Like, I understand what he's saying. It just, to me, it just kind of sounds like, at the end of the day, take individual responsibility, do better, then you'll get better results. I agree to a point, but that could be a bit of an oversimplification. And which he alludes to, like I said, if it's okay, you're doing different things, but maybe you're picking the wrong women, or maybe you're in an environment where there's just not good women around you. Or, you know, maybe it's, you need to expand your options and get over there. I mean, there's all kind of different things that it could be, but my personal opinion is that just the way things are happening today, and just in general, there's both men and women can be implicated into the issues that we see in modern society, especially in modern families. If men and women grew up in broken homes, which many of us had, single parent households, you know, maybe no fathers, maybe no mothers, whatever it may be, it's safe to assume that both were negatively impacted. Now, we can argue about who's more impacted, who's worse off. As a woman, like I said, who speaks to women, has spoken to women, and knows women, I certainly know that there is a big problem among the female, just women in general, in some expectations and some things that we've been told, and how that has negatively impacted just relationships in general. I can say that at the very least anecdotally, and then there's, you know, just different evidence and just different recent reports and things that we've seen to also support that claim. And like I said, also, you know, men have their issues too. So you said that's probably the only intelligent thing he said. Okay, we're almost to the end.
No, that was really powerful, Jordan Peterson. I love the call always back to accountability. And so as one who's been married for so many decades, I think one of the challenges a lot of men do is they aim for the wrong women, or they pick the wrong women. So in your personal experience from your years of marriage, and there's also years of study, what would you say are things that men need to be focusing in on when it's trying to select a woman for a long-term marriage partner?
Well, you want someone honest.
Fair.
That's really, really important. Someone who will do her best to tell the truth. And my wife swore she'd do that before we got married, and she has. Probably better than I have. And so that's a rock, man, at the bottom of things, you know. So and you can't underplay the role of sexual attraction. And
fair.
That's a mysterious thing. And so that's crucial as far as I'm concerned. And can't be.
So I have a real question about that, Jordan Peterson, Dr. Peterson. So you mentioned pornography, and we do countless pieces of content to be able to help young men overcome that issue and provide tons of resources to help them support them. So what I've noticed that happens sometimes is because of years of watching pornography, the men's sexual attraction becomes warped. And so how can a man whose sexual attraction to women has become warped to the extreme ends due to so much consumption of pornography, how can that man go back to now being attracted to, more natural looking women or more women that could be around their lives instead of the projected?
Deprivation is helpful. I mean, so I think it's reasonable to assume that there's a novelty edge in pornography, like there is in so many quasi-addictive phenomena. And so it has to become, because novelty is a sexual kick, it has to stay novel, and that means that over time it's going to become more extreme.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think he made some good general points. It sounds like he's been married for a few decades. So naturally, anybody who's been married for a long time, especially in a society where people don't stay married, they're going to have wisdom to share as far as maybe how to get along with a spouse, how to maintain a healthy relationship. With that said, do I believe he may be the best option as far as helping modern men navigate dating in today's society? I don't know. To me, it sounds like he's a few decades out of touch. Same with women. Would he be the best resource for that? I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to talk to I don't know his age, but for example, somebody who's 65 and have them talk to me about, okay, well, how should I date today? When dating today is now you slide into somebody's DMs, or people aren't even necessarily going out literally to eat anymore. They're Netflix and chilling. Like it's a completely different paradigm than it was back probably when he was dating. So I don't know that he would be the best reference as far as how to actually navigate today's scene. I just like to say he doesn't have good basic wisdom as far as how to get along with a woman in a certain capacity. But at the end of the day, I do agree that what he said is good about men taking a self accountability and looking at themselves and making sure that they're on their A game. And that they're also choosing women who are wife's materials. We also see a lot of dudes who they just get so enamored with a woman's look that they overlook her character. That happens very much just like it happens where women who, when they're young and dumb, they choose a Pookie and Rare, somebody that looks good, who's a bad boy, who's whatever, and that ends up injuring her. So I do think men can be taught how to vet properly for wives at a younger age, you know what I mean? Just like women should be taught. And I think a lot of this has more to do with the breakdown of the family. But in my personal opinion, it is a overgeneralization to just say men are the problem. If you're having a hard time finding a woman, it's because you don't dress good, or it's because you don't talk good. Because I'm like, nah, there's females out there who really do have unrealistic expectations. And we have dating coaches and femininity experts who have been in the market recently who say just that. And so while I think certainly men have some work to do, women obviously have a lot of work to do also, and I'm here for it. So those are my thoughts. Those are my concerns. And yeah, that was a interesting video. Anyways, for those of you who have hopped on, I appreciate your time. Please, as always, get the likes up, tag anybody on who you think may find it interesting, share it. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. If you want to show support to this channel, you can find me on Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Shay Sade. Also, lastly, if you want to have more exclusive behind the scenes content and become a monthly member and just receive more perks, I now have channel membership. So I'm really excited about that, and I would love to see you guys there. So check out my channel membership page to learn more. And yeah, I think that's it. I see I have a few questions. Boomer's dating advice be like, give her flowers, sing her a song, and beg her for love. No, literally. That's what I'm saying. It's just like, it's like talking to a boomer about dating in 2020 is like talking to a boomer about, like, I don't know, education or the economy. It's not to say there may not be some basic wisdom, but it's like literally we are on a completely different playing field. I mean, I remember my mom telling me when she went to college, I think her entire education cost her like $200-300. It's like something crazy like that. Like her entire 4 years. It was like crazy cheap. Education, we know, has gone up exponentially. I mean, the cost of wages across the board has gone up. I think it's gone up like 3% since 1976, and the cost of living has gone up at least 5%. So it's like the cost of living has risen almost twice as much as the cost as almost twice as much as people's income. So it's like, again, if I want to talk to a boomer about the economy and they'd be like, oh, well, just do this, just do that, just work hard, it's going to work out. It's like, yeah, you can work hard and do different things, but it's not an equal playing field. Now you can't just go to college and be out debt free. If you go to college, you're going to have debt. And I think that's probably one reason a lot of men are looking and they're just like, do I want to go to college, get a whole bunch of different debt because I can't get a scholarship because it's probably harder for men to get scholarships, especially for certain things. So they want to go get in a whole bunch of different debt, get out of college, and now I got to spend the next 30-40 years just paying off that debt just to try to get a decent paying job. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, of course, like it's good to have conversations with our elders, and I plan on doing more of that. I want to bring elders on that kind of have different conversations and talk about these different things because I think they're important. But we can't overgeneralize, and I think at a certain point we have to understand that there may be certain things that they just don't necessarily, they just can't understand because they're not here. It says, very interesting. We'll try to catch the beginning this weekend. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate you. Awa. I hope I said that right. I hope I didn't butcher your name. It looks pretty. It's a very pretty name. I just hope I said it right. And yes, so that's what I got. That's what I got. If you guys are around tomorrow, tune in. I'm going to be having a conversation with Rashida and Obsidian. We're going to be looking at Black beauty standards and colorism and darkism and all that different stuff. So if you're around tomorrow, it's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tune in. Or if you can't get at that time, then be sure to watch the playback. Anyways, I appreciate all of you guys, and I'm going to sign off. We'll talk later. Bye.